Gary Black is buying more Tesla stock. He sold some at 180, but now he's buying some back. And then Ives says that Tesla stock is oversold, meaning it might be not a bad time to buy more.
I want to ask you about Tesla, though, because there's one where maybe you needed something stronger than a cappuccino. Have you been watching the recent stock action, Dan? The company did just come out and say it was raising some of its prices in China, but also it sounds like in the US, not raising by much, right? And so is this just like a bonus throwing to investors, or what, what do we make of it?
Yeah, look, it's been obviously under a lot of pressure with the 6 price cuts. It's that push-pull between margins and units. And obviously the stock had a nice rebound that we've seen earlier this year. But going forward, it's about showing that the sustainable growth story in China is there. That the price war that's playing out, they're going to be able to navigate, ultimately to a company that hits 1.9 million units, but you're able to have that gross margin X credit in that sort of upper teen 20% range and going forward. That's going to be the balancing act here for Tesla. Look, I think the stock's oversold, but no doubt it's a prove me story into the second half of the year. And Musk and the team have been there before.
This is really nothing new for Elon, and I think to a certain extent, certainly, Elon does better than there is such pressure on him.
But I think you're just going through a digestion period here. But I would rather them put an iron fence around their install base in what is this EV arms race playing out, especially in the 313 era with GM and Ford going all in.
It is a bit difficult to take Ford seriously when Ford's margins are minus 102%, and yet they are still cutting prices. That margin means Ford spends $100,000 roughly to make a vehicle that sells for $50,000. And it would be one thing if they had a huge backlog, for example, for the Mach-E, but according to FSD, Mach-E dealership inventories in the US are significantly above 120 days of supply. This is not just 15 days of supply. It's 120 days of supply. No one is buying these vehicles, really. This is before Tesla even has the Cybertruck and the next generation vehicle. What do you think is going to happen later to Ford and GM? So yeah, Ford has lower margins right now because the factory was shut down, and the Ford Lightning, well, there was a production shutdown because of a potential recall and things like that. But with Tesla, I can buy into that argument if the inventories are not abnormally high. I mean, over 120 days of supply. With Tesla, if they need to shut down a factory for a little bit to upgrade the lines, or if they don't want to pay twice as much because it's a holiday, for example, go ahead. But with Ford, yeah. I'm not exactly sure why they shut down the factory for the Mach-E. I think they did. I'm not really sure. But if they did, and if it happened sort of by accident because maybe there's some sort of an issue with a production line or something like that, I think the management goes like, oh, this is actually really good. We are able to tell investors now that, we had to shut down the factory, so therefore the numbers are not good. Not because our inventories are abnormally high. And it appears that there might be some sort of serious issue, perhaps, with a Lightning. First time my Ford Lightning stranded me, I was 1,000 miles away from home. This time, I'm 500 miles away from home. Even if they fix it, can I trust driving this away from my home? Total disappointing in the reliability of this truck, but otherwise love it. Looks like the first time it had something to do with charging. He has a picture of a Rivian also here. That's someone else's Rivian, which also died after plugging into Electrify America. Rivian R1T dies with a bang after plugging in. Although this time he says it was not charging. His battery was at 65% still, but only showed 4% power on the power meter. So that's the battery, still good, but power only at 4%. 40% would be around here. I think that's regen. So 0 is right here. Maybe it's just a one-time event, I'm not sure, but I have not heard of people plugging into a supercharger with a Tesla and then the car just dying. I've never heard of that. I'm sure it happened at least once to someone somewhere, but I don't see those on Twitter or in the news even. In the meantime, I much rather prefer a Tesla. Look at that save year. That's really good. We have R&D spending. GM is number 2, and in terms of how much GM spends compared to its revenues, actually GM is number 1. And Tesla, surprisingly, is quite low here, but none of these companies are able to keep up with Tesla despite spending so much money on research and development. And it sort of makes sense. For example, look at this software unit from Volkswagen. It spent a lot of money, and it has not much to show. For all of that money spent, Volkswagen spends about 5 times more on research and development than Tesla, and yet the software is, I wouldn't call it great. Probably not even good if I'm comparing it to Tesla. One reason why Tesla does so well with its research and development is because Elon Musk thinks of the whole company as being research and development. And that really makes sense when you think about it. Unless you are one of these legacy automakers that assumes we're just going to spend the money and things will just magically happen. They will just appear out of nowhere. We will give a lot of money to mediocre engineers and surely they will come up with something that will beat the world's best engineers working at Tesla. About a year ago, I was in a new Nissan and I clicked around, and every time I did, it made noises that Windows XP Internet Explorer did. This was like 15 years ago, so I can't imagine how old that software is that these automakers are still running. Whatever they were using, it must have been at least a decade old probably. But you look at how fast things develop today. If you use something that's just 1 year old, it's probably not going to be that good compared to how good it could be. And it's no surprise that Volkswagen is set to dismiss all but one of the executive board members at its software division next week to try to resolve development problems. The keyword here is try. The software division has exceeded its budget and failed to meet its goals. In the meantime, do you remember this? Excited to work with Tesla service to enable same hour service as often as possible, applying Formula One pit crew techniques to Teslas. Do you think that could have something to do with Elon being at Formula One right now? I think there's a good possibility. Tesla also mysteriously reduced Model Y performance range in Canada, hinting at another import coming soon from China. So nothing really mysterious here to me. You can't really import vehicles from China to US. Well, technically you can, but the tariffs are going to be huge, but you sort of can import these vehicles to Canada. We also got another price increase in Denmark this time for the Model S and X variants. I know some investors really don't like that Tesla has higher inventory than before, but to a certain extent, certainly that helps create demand because the vehicles are easier to be purchased. This is Norway, and look at Tesla in the first quarter. This is the first 35 days. Where is Tesla? Nowhere. You can't see it. It's right here. Volkswagen is here and Tesla is here at the bottom. And now look at the first 35 days of this quarter and you see Volkswagen is ahead, but Tesla is super close and clearly it is about to take over Volkswagen. Some Tesla stock investors are certainly excited about Q2 in Europe. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I am so invested into Tesla stock, is because Elon focuses on innovation so much. Looking at the government data, it's a bit insane. March payrolls were revised from 236,000 to 165,000 instead of a beat. It would have been a huge miss. Elon says almost like there's latency in their data, so things are worse than they realize. I loved seeing this. What else can we improve about Airbnb? We will prioritize your top suggestions, Elon Musk says. This kind of interaction with users is awesome. Other companies should take note. And guess which one did? This was literally about an hour later after Elon tweeted that. What should we improve? Let us know in the comments below. I love that. A big thank you to all my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support the channel, you may do so on Patreon. There is a link down below, and this video explains why Tesla board members are not buying more Tesla stock. My name is Matt Postius. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video, probably tomorrow. I'm still pretty busy with my responsibilities at the healthcare business that I own.